Hi, my name is Sarah Milosevic, and I'm the Marlise and Robert Gorley Community Outreach Supervisor here at the Kauffman Center. I'm in magnificent Muriel Kauffman Theater. From the warm hues of the seats, to the abstract murals on the wall, to the golden balustrades that shimmer in the light, this space is full of layers of vibrant colors. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Courtney with Scraps KC, who's going to walk us through a really fun weaving craft that mimics the layers of warmth and colors here in Muriel Kauffman Theater.
Hi everyone, my name is Courtney Christensen and I am the Education and Events Coordinator at Scraps KC, a local nonprofit creative reuse center. And part of my job is encouraging creativity in young people and finding unique ways to repurpose things. So today we're going to talk about weaving on old CDs with scrap yarn. So CDs are usually something that everyone has sitting around their house, and this is a fun way to turn it into a wall hanging. You could use these as coasters, you can make them as a gift, and just make something really festive and colorful. So we are going to start by taking a blank CD. It can have things on either side, that's fine. I like to have my weaving on top of the back iridescent side just because I like the way that the light hits it through the yarn. So when you're weaving, the yarn that is typically going up and down is called your warp, and the yarn that's going back and forth through those is called your weft. So it's going to look a little bit different because we're weaving in the round on these CDs, but you're going to take a yarn, and it can be the same color yarn that you want to weave with, or it can be different. I like to use a contrast, so I'm going to use this white, and you're going to tuck the tail end behind, like through the middle hole, and just hold it with your finger. You're not going to tie it yet. And then we're basically just going to make a bunch of lines on this CD. So I'm going to just pull it through. You don't need really any special tools to do this. Just a CD, scrap yarn, some scissors to cut your yarn. If you have a yarn needle, that can be helpful, but you certainly don't need it. You can just use your fingers on this project, which is what I'm doing right now. So you can see my finger is still on the back part here, holding my tail end down. And the reason for that is that once I get to the end, then I'll tie it together that way. So I'm just going to keep weaving through. And you could make this as many or as few as you want. It will just change the look of your weaving. It can either be a really loose weave or it can be a really tight weave. So I'm going to go for about a medium amount. And the nice thing about this project is that once you have all of your loops on here, then you can space them out so they can be further apart or closer together and make sure they're all even. So about halfway done here, and I'll just keep wrapping. It's pretty simple. This is a great activity for kiddos. You might just have to help them get it started by holding this. You could also get a piece of tape or glue and tape that down while you're wrapping, and that might be helpful as you're going. Weaving on CDs is a great introductory way to start learning how to weave and the different terminology. Also makes really fun ornaments. And you can see it looks like I'm finished, but I'm actually going to keep wrapping here, and I'm just going to move these warp threads down because I want to have a little bit of a tighter weave on this. Maybe go one or two more times. And that seems good to me. So actually, I'm going to cut my warp thread on the back. And now I'm going to take the 2 loose ends and just tie them in a double knot. So it's all, actually I'm gonna give myself a little more slack here. Probably should have not cut it quite so tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So the one thing you do want to do when you're weaving in a round is you want to have, cut that thread, you want to have an odd number of warp threads. So that way when you come back around as you're weaving, your over under will alternate and it'll turn into a true weave. And I'll show you more of what that looks like when we get going. So you can kind of see I'm spacing all of my warp threads out. You can already see how the light is catching the iridescence of the CD, which is really pretty. You could definitely, if you wanted, make these like a different looking weave pattern by doing something like this, where you have 2 close together and then they're further apart. For this project, I'm just gonna make everything as even as I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. And as you're weaving, you can even change that around a little bit. So I have this really pretty sort of muted fall colors that I'm gonna use. So this is my warp. I'm gonna use this for my weft, and I'm gonna start that by just tucking the yarn under one of the threads, and I'm pulling it almost all the way through, but I'm gonna leave a little tail. And so I'm actually gonna take this tail and I'm gonna weave it back a little bit just to give me some stability as I go. So I'm just going over and under each thread with my weft. And it's fine if it's sticking out a little bit or if you can see it behind the warp threads, because that'll all get covered up as we weave over it. So I wove that back a little bit. I'm gonna just trim this end that's kind of frayed off. And then I will keep weaving. So this is where, if you have a yarn needle, it's helpful, but you don't have to have one. You can definitely just use your fingers. I'm gonna use the yarn needle because it lets me go over and under more threads at a time. So with my yarn needle, and you can get these at Scraps, we have them in our store, or you could get them at any craft supply or fabric store. So I went under that, so I'm gonna go over this warp and under, over, under, over, under. So because it's round, I can't go through too many at a time, but I'll keep pulling this through. And then you just don't want to pull this really hard when you're starting out, because you might pull all of your weaving out. You don't want to do that. Weaving is all about having the even tension of your threads. So I'm pulling, 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 and then I'll slow down and get a little more gentle as I get closer to the end and kind of lay that in place. So this is where I started and it's kind of sticking out. So I'm just going to use this yarn and kind of tuck it under so that it doesn't show. And then the more layers I put on, the less that will show. So I'm gonna go, I went under this thread, so I'm gonna go over, under, over, under. And it's helpful to, when you have the space, go out in these where it's further apart and you've got a little more space. And then you can always pull it down. So if you had a yarn that was harder to pull down, you could actually even take a fork or a comb and kind of push it down if you needed to. This yarn is pretty simple to work with, so you don't need to do that. But if your yarn was really fuzzy or sticking for some reason, you could do that. And so you're just gonna keep going with these. Over, under, and you can see now it'll alternate. And I've actually got one here that I did with really colorful yarn that reminds me of coming to the Kaufman Center and seeing all the costumes when we come see the ballet and the lights and the stage and the theater. And here So I'll finish this one so that you can see how to finish it, but you can see where my warp thread is poking through a little bit, and I want to leave just a little edge so that you can still see the CD, but I'm going to finish this pretty much all the way. Go over, under, over, under. So the reason we have an odd number of warps, you can see on this thread, it went over this warp, but now the next time around is coming underneath, and that's what creates our weaving. So you want to make sure you put an odd number of loops on your CD when you get started. It's really the only sort of rule to this. The rest of it can be totally customized to what you want to do. This is great if you're a knitter and you have little scraps of yarn to use up that wouldn't make a full hat or scarf or sweater, but you really like the yarn, you could make these. These would make really fun coasters as a set to give as a gift to someone, or hang them in a window so they can catch the light. All sorts of things you can do with this. So I'm just gonna do maybe 1 or 2 more times around, and then we'll finish it off. So if you weren't gonna use a yarn needle, I'll show you that real quick. You just use your fingers. There's still quite a bit of give on these yarns, and so it's pretty simple to just go over that yarn and put it under this one and pull it through, and over that yarn and under this one and pull it through. So the yarn needle makes it go faster, but it's definitely not necessary. So now that we are about finished, I am actually just going to tie this in a knot around a warp thread. So this is a thread that I would be going over. I went over it and then I came back underneath it going the other way to make a loop. There's my loop. I'm going to put the yarn through it to tie a knot. So I'm just tying a knot around that warp thread, and then I'm going to do that again to make a double knot. So I went around that warp thread again. I have a loop, pull my yarn through, I have a double knot, and then I'm just going to trim that end, not completely, because I actually want a small tail, and then that tail I can tuck underneath my weave. And that'll just help hold it in place. If this is something that you're going to use as like a coaster or something a little more heavy duty, you could glue that down. But if you're just hanging this, it'll be fine the way that it is. And then if you wanted to use this as a coaster, you could cover the bottom in felt, or you could weave both sides. You could easily attach a hanger right here and hang it on a wall or in a window. They would make a great ornament on a tree. Yeah, that is CD weaving with your old CDs and yarn scraps.
We want to see your family's weaving skills. Post your finished project on social media and tag the Kaufman Center and Scraps KC. Thanks for joining us today.